Millionaire weds a fake bride to please his dying mother, but her one rule changes everything. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. The hallway outside room 514 smelled faintly of antiseptic and faded lilies, the kind nurses place beside patients who can no longer smell them. Ethan Ward stood there frozen, one hand braced against the cold metal doorframe, the other clutching a crumpled surgical mask he had forgotten to put on. On the monitor inside, his mother's heartbeat moved in slow, stubborn peaks, strong enough to hold on, too weak to promise tomorrow. Ethan. Her voice was a whisper brushing the edges of breath. He hurried to her side, pulling the chair close, forcing a smile that even he did not believe. Her fingers trembled as they found his wrist. I just want to see you settled before I go. The words punched straight through his ribs. He had heard many things as a CEO, demands, accusations, desperate pitches, but nothing hit like his mother asking for a miracle he could not give. He wasn't dating. He wasn't engaged. He barely had time to sleep. But her doctor had said the quiet part aloud. If there's anything you need to say to her, say it soon. Soon. The ugliest word in the world. Ethan swallowed hard. Mom, but she pressed a shaking finger to his lips. Just let me believe. You won't be alone. That night he sat in his penthouse living room, the city lights stretching like a map of every decision he had made. Power, money, influence, everything except a family. He poured whiskey into a crystal glass, but didn't drink. Instead, he stared at the framed photo of his mother holding him on his first day of kindergarten. Back when life was simple. Back when love didn't feel like a scarce and dangerous thing. And maybe that was why, when his assistant sent him the file, potential candidates for temporary marriage arrangement, per your request, he didn't shut it down. He didn't even question what kind of man he had become. He just opened it, scrolled, stopped. Her picture wasn't polished like the others. She wasn't posing, wasn't selling herself. Just a candid shot of a woman in a thrift store sweater, hair tucked behind one ear, as if caught mid-laugh with someone who made her feel safe. Her name, Maya Jensen. Age, 26. Occupation, café server. Notes, applied for financial aid to cover her father's medical bills. Ethan leaned back slowly, heartbeat tightening. A woman with everything to lose and nothing to pretend. Maybe that was exactly what he needed. Maybe that was exactly who his mother needed to see. The next morning, Maya stepped into the corner booth of the cafe where they agreed to meet, wiping her hands on her apron, completely unaware of the offer that was about to rewrite her entire life. The corner booth was quieter than Maya expected, tucked away from the morning traffic of customers grabbing lattes on their way to work. She smoothed the front of her worn apron, trying to hide the tiny coffee stain from the early shift. When Ethan walked in, she noticed him immediately because everyone noticed him. Not in a loud, attention-seeking way, but in that effortless, polished way successful men seem to carry themselves. His shirt was crisp, his posture was straight, and the look in his eyes was sharp enough to cut through any lie. She swallowed, reminding herself that she had agreed to this meeting only because of the financial aid request she had submitted. She needed help, not trouble. Ethan took the seat across from her with a polite nod that held no visible warmth, only purpose. For a moment he simply looked at her, as if assessing whether she was real or just another line in a spreadsheet. Then he said, Maya Jensen? She nodded. Yes. You must be Mr. Ward. Ethan did not correct her. Mr. felt easier right now than explaining the weight that came with the word millionaire. He folded his hands on the table. Thank you for meeting me on short notice. I figured someone offering to review my application for financial assistance would not be the sort of person I should keep waiting. She replied lightly, though her pulse was unsteady. He studied her reaction closely. No greed. No acting. Just exhaustion tucked inside a sense of responsibility. He took a breath. Maya, before we talk about your request, I need to be honest about why I asked you here. Her eyebrows pulled together. Is something wrong with the application? No, he said, not at all. This is not about your application. It is about my mother. That startled her. Your mother? She is very sick, Ethan said, voice deepening in a way he could not control. And she may not have much time left. Her last wish is to see me married. Maya blinked. Twice. Then stared. Married? I do not understand. What does that have to do with me? Ethan exhaled slowly. This was the moment that shifted everything. I need someone who can be my wife in front of her. Not forever. Not romantically. Just temporarily. Her mouth fell open. The words did not make sense at first. Then they did. Too quickly. You want me to pretend to be your wife. I want to offer you a legal but temporary marriage arrangement, he clarified. A contract. With clear terms. With compensation enough to take care of everything you need. Maya sat back, stunned. She had expected a rejection, maybe a small loan program, but this? She shook her head. Why me? You do not even know me. Because you are exactly the kind of person she would believe, Ethan said quietly. Someone genuine. Someone honest. Someone who is not chasing my money. He saw her flinch slightly, embarrassment coloring her cheeks. She had walked here because her car could not make the trip. She worked double shifts. She lived in a rented room the size of a walk-in closet. She knew how she looked next to him. Her voice dropped. Mr. Ward, I cannot just marry a stranger. You would not be jumping into this blind, he said. You would have rules. Your rules. You would have full control over the boundaries. And if you say no, I will never bother you again. Maya stared at her hands, fingers trembling slightly. Her father's medical bills had been piling up like sandbags around her life. The weight was real, crushing, and this man was offering a bridge out of the flood. But at what cost? She lifted her chin, searching his face for any cruelty, any hidden trick. There was none. Only desperation he was trying to disguise as professionalism. She closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them slowly. If I say yes, I have one rule. Ethan leaned in, his heartbeat tightening as if the entire world paused for her answer. What rule? Maya met his gaze with steady, guarded eyes. No physical contact. Ever. Not even for show. Ethan did not argue. He did not even flinch. He simply nodded once, accepting the boundary as if it was the most natural condition in the world. In that moment he realized something he had not expected. This was not a business transaction anymore. This was the beginning of something neither of them was prepared for. For a long moment Ethan simply sat there, absorbing the rule she had placed between them like a wall made of glass, invisible yet impossible to ignore. No physical contact. Not even a staged handhold. Not a gentle touch on the shoulder. Not the kind of casual closeness most couples could fake without thinking. He had expected hesitation, maybe fear, but not this. There was something painfully honest in it that he could not look away from. Maya waited, her posture straight but her fingers twisting the edge of her apron as if she was afraid the silence itself might become a trap. Finally Ethan spoke, his voice even and steady. Your rule is accepted. No physical contact. No exceptions. Relief flickered across her face, followed by something like disbelief that a man like him would agree so easily. She nodded once. Then I will listen. That is all I can promise right now. Ethan reached for a leather folder he had kept beside him on the booth seat. He placed it on the table, sliding it gently toward her. This contains the contract draft. It outlines the duration, your compensation, your control over boundaries, and the legal protections you will have. You are free to take it, read it, review it with an attorney if you choose. Maya looked at the folder but did not touch it. Her voice softened. Why are you trusting me with something this big? Ethan answered without hesitation. Because I do not have time to search for someone else, and because I believe you will not abuse this. Her chest tightened. Not because of the money, not because of the proposal, but because someone finally said they trusted her at a time when her entire life had been collapsing under debt and worry and endless responsibility. She took a slow, deep breath. How long would this arrangement last? Until my mother passes, Ethan replied quietly. The truth carried weight that settled across the table. Maya lowered her gaze, sympathy replacing caution. I am sorry, she whispered. I truly am. Ethan gave a faint nod. He did not show emotion easily, but her sincerity cracked something open inside him. There is something important we need to discuss, he said. My mother may not have the strength for surprises. If you agree to this, we will need to appear as a couple immediately. That means moving into my home so she can see us whenever she wishes. Maya inhaled sharply. Move in? With you? Only in the eyes of others. Ethan clarified. You will have your own room, your own privacy, your own life. The rule still stands. I will not violate that. She hesitated, the idea overwhelming her. She had never stepped foot in a penthouse before. She had never lived anywhere that did not have peeling paint or thin walls. I will need time to pack. And to tell my boss, she said softly. I cannot just disappear. Ethan leaned back slightly, calculating but gentle. You will not lose your job. I can speak to the owner and cover your absence. You can return when this ends. Nothing in your life has to crumble for this to work. She studied him again. Searching. Testing. And your family? Will they accept me? Ethan let out a short, humorless breath. My family cares about appearances. You will look the part once we prepare you. Maya stiffened. Prepare me. He nodded. Stylist, etiquette consultant, media coaching. Only so you will not feel lost at events. You set the boundaries, but I will ensure you are never embarrassed. Her cheeks warmed at the thought, but she squared her shoulders. I do not want to be turned into someone I am not. And you will not be, Ethan said plainly. We are simply creating a bridge so that you can walk in my world without sinking. She exhaled, the fear and possibility of it all tangling inside her chest. Then, after a long silence, she reached forward and rested her fingers on the leather folder. She did not open it, but she touched it, and that alone was enough to make Ethan feel the shift. I will read it, she said finally. And if the terms are exactly what you described, then I will say yes. Something eased inside him for the first time in weeks. The unbearable pressure of watching his mother fade. The dread of facing it alone. The quiet fear of failing her last wish. For the first time, he felt the faintest thread of hope. Maya stood, clutching the folder to her chest. I will contact you tonight, she said. Ethan rose as well, offering her space to move past him. No touch. No closeness. Only distance. Only respect. As she stepped outside into the sunlight, Ethan watched her go with a strange certainty that he was not simply hiring a stand-in bride. He was inviting a storm into his carefully controlled life. And deep down, he already knew he would not be the same man when it was over. When Maya returned to her small rented room that evening, she closed the door quietly behind her and stood there for a long moment, the leather folder pressed tightly to her chest. The room was dim, lit only by a single lamp that flickered every few seconds, reminding her that the wiring in the old building had never truly been fixed. Her father's medical bills sat stacked on her bedside table, neatly organized because that was the only thing she could control in a life that constantly spiraled. She sat on the edge of the bed and finally opened the folder. The contract was printed on thick, expensive paper, the kind she had only ever seen in law offices or corporate boards when she delivered coffee. As she read each clause, her breath trembled. Ethan had kept his word. Every boundary she had asked for was written clearly. No physical contact. Separate rooms. Full autonomy. Immediate end of contract upon his mother's passing. Compensation enough to save her father and allow her family to breathe again. A simple signature stood between her and a new reality. She felt the weight of it all pressing on her chest. Then she picked up her phone with shaking hands and sent one text. I agree. When do you need me to move in? The reply came within seconds. Tomorrow morning. I will send a car. The next day, a black SUV arrived outside her building, so polished it reflected the cracked sidewalk. Maya stepped out with one suitcase, wearing her best blouse and the same boots she had worn for 3 winters. The driver opened the door for her without a word. She sat in the back seat feeling like she had been dropped into someone else's life. As the SUV climbed toward the wealthiest neighborhood in the city, the scenery changed. Small shops turned into glass towers, narrow streets into wide boulevards lined with untouched landscaping. And then she saw it, Ethan's penthouse building. It rose above everything else, a structure of steel and luxury that felt almost unreal. The driver helped her out and escorted her inside, where Ethan stood waiting in the lobby wearing a charcoal suit that made him look even more out of reach. Good morning, Maya, he said, his tone respectful but distant. She nodded. Good morning. He glanced at her single suitcase, and something softened in his expression. I have prepared a room for you. If anything is missing, tell me immediately. You will have everything you need. She followed him into the private elevator, which ascended silently to the top floor. When the doors opened, she stepped into a space so large she felt dizzy. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, sunlight spilling across a living room that could have fit her entire apartment 3 times over. Your room is down the hall, Ethan said. You have your own bathroom, closet, and workspace. No one will disturb you. She walked inside her new room and froze. It was not extravagant, not overwhelming, but warm, calm, and thoughtfully arranged. A soft bed, clean sheets, a new set of toiletries, a small vase with fresh flowers. Someone had done this intentionally, and she knew who. Ethan stood in the doorway, careful not to step inside. The stylist and etiquette consultant will arrive in 2 hours, he said. They will help prepare you for visiting my mother this evening. Maya's pulse jumped. Tonight. She asked for me, Ethan said quietly. She does not have many clear moments left. I want her to meet you while she is awake. Maya nodded slowly, gripping the edge of the dresser for balance. This was no longer a theoretical arrangement. This was real. The doorbell echoed through the penthouse, and the team arrived exactly as scheduled. A stylist, a makeup artist, and an etiquette coach entered with rolling cases, greeting her warmly. But professionally, the makeover was nothing like she feared. There was no attempt to erase who she was. Instead, they enhanced her natural features, softened her hair, adjusted her posture, showed her how to navigate formal spaces without drawing the wrong kind of attention. Throughout the process, Ethan stayed in the living room, giving her privacy while answering emails with the rigid focus of a man who lived on deadlines. When she finally stepped out, wearing a simple but elegant dress in a soft cream shade, Ethan rose to his feet. He blinked once, almost like he had forgotten how to speak. You look, he stopped, choosing his words carefully. You look exactly right for this. Maya exhaled, gripping her hands together. I am ready to meet her. Ethan nodded and offered a small, reassuring distance between them. Not a touch, not a gesture, just presence. Then let us go, he said. And for the first time, they walked side by side as a couple the world was about to believe in. The drive to the hospital was quiet except for the soft hum of the engine and the steady rhythm of Maya's breath as she tried to calm the storm inside her chest. She kept her hands folded tightly on her lap, afraid they might tremble if she let them rest freely. Ethan sat beside her, posture straight, gaze fixed on the road ahead, even though he was not the one driving. Every few seconds he drew in a quiet breath, like he was preparing himself for a moment he could not predict. When the car finally stopped outside the private wing of the hospital, Maya felt her heart climb into her throat. Ethan stepped out first and opened her door, not touching her, not even brushing the fabric of her dress. He simply offered space and waited until she was steady on her feet. She is awake today, Ethan said softly. The doctor said she has been asking for me since morning. Maya nodded, her voice caught somewhere behind fear and compassion. I will do my best. That is all I ask, Ethan replied. They walked down the quiet hallway toward room 514, the same doorway Ethan had stood in when his mother made her heartbreaking request. The scent of antiseptic was familiar, but the atmosphere felt different now. This time he was not walking in alone. He paused before the door and looked at Maya with an expression she had never seen from him before, something fragile beneath the composed exterior. Are you ready? She inhaled slowly. Yes. Ethan pushed open the door gently. The room was dim, the blinds half pulled to spare the patient's eyes from the harsh afternoon sun. His mother lay in the bed, her hair thinner than the last time Maya had seen her in a photograph, her skin pale, but her eyes open with surprising clarity. When she saw Ethan, her entire face softened. There you are, she whispered. Ethan stepped forward, careful to keep a respectful distance from Maya as they entered. Mother, I want you to meet someone very important. Her gaze shifted toward Maya, and in that moment Maya felt every fear rush through her. Fear of lying, fear of being discovered, fear of disappointing a woman who had very little time left. But Ethan's mother smiled, a faint, warm smile that erased the tension from the room. You must be Maya, she said. Ethan told me you are the one who holds his future. Maya swallowed. It is an honor to meet you, she said softly. Ethan's mother gestured weakly toward the chair beside her. Come closer, dear. Let me see you properly. Maya obeyed, sitting carefully, mindful of her rule and the boundaries she had set. She folded her hands neatly in her lap, trying to appear calm even as her pulse raced. You are beautiful, Ethan's mother murmured. But more than that, you look kind. Maya lowered her gaze, humbled. Thank you. Tell me, The older woman whispered. How did you two fall in love? Maya froze. She felt Ethan stiffen as well. This was the question they had not rehearsed, the question they should have expected. For a moment Maya felt herself spiraling, searching desperately for an answer that would not betray the truth. Ethan stepped closer, his voice gentle but firm. It happened slowly, he said, and all at once. Maya glanced up at him, surprised by how natural the words sounded. Ethan continued, choosing each sentence with care. She was someone I could not ignore. Someone who challenged me, not with arguments, but with honesty. She did not chase after what I had, she saw who I was. His mother smiled at that, her eyes drifting to Maya again. And what do you love about my son, dear? Maya inhaled sharply. Her fingers gripped the edge of her dress. She could not lie about feelings she did not yet have, but she could speak the truth she had seen. He carries the world on his shoulders, she said quietly. But he still tries to protect the people he loves, even when it hurts. There is strength in that. And humanity. Ethan's mother closed her eyes, and a tear slipped down her cheek. I am glad, she whispered. I am glad he found someone like you. Maya felt her chest tighten in a way she did not expect, an ache that came from knowing she was giving comfort under false pretenses, but also from seeing how deeply Ethan loved his mother. Ethan reached for the blanket, adjusting it gently over his mother's shoulders, and Maya noticed the slight tremble in his hand as he tucked it in place. His mother's voice softened to a fragile whisper. Promise me, you will take care of each other. Ethan hesitated, then spoke in a voice that broke slightly at the edges. I promise. Maya looked at him, at the quiet pain behind his eyes, and for the first time since this arrangement began she felt something shift inside her. This was not merely a contract. This was a man standing at the edge of losing the only person who had ever truly loved him. And somehow, without meaning to, she had become part of the hope he needed to hold on to. As they left the room, Ethan paused in the hallway and turned toward her. He did not touch her. He honored her rule. But his voice was different now, softer than she had ever heard it. Thank you, Maya. You made her happy today. She looked up at him, unable to speak for a moment. Then she nodded, her voice steady but warm. She made me want to be better for her. And for you. Ethan lowered his gaze, struggling with an emotion he could not name. This contract, he whispered, may not be as simple as we thought. And for the first time, Maya agreed. The hours after their visit to Ethan's mother felt strangely weightless, as if the world had slowed down just enough for Maya to feel every shift in the air around them. When they returned to the penthouse, Ethan sat, his keys on the marble counter, and exhaled deeply, the kind of exhale that came from holding pain too long. Maya stood a few steps behind him, unsure whether to speak or give him space. She remembered her rule. No contact, no closeness, only boundaries. Yet the silence stretched so thin that she finally said, in a soft voice, You were very strong in there. Ethan turned slightly, his expression unreadable in the dim evening light. I was not strong, he said quietly. I was barely keeping myself together. She nodded, because she had seen it, the subtle tremor in his hand, the tightness in his jaw, the way he had looked at his mother as if memorizing every detail. You did well, she whispered. She felt loved. That mattered. He looked at her then, really looked at her, and something softened in his eyes. You helped make her day better, he said. I do not know how to thank you for that. You do not have to thank me, she answered. She is a good woman. Anyone could see that. Ethan's eyes lowered slightly, as if he was thinking something he could not say aloud. Not everyone would have done what you did today. Maya felt a warmth rise in her chest, something unfamiliar and uninvited, something that made her feel dangerously close to caring beyond the contract. She stepped back, needing to keep her head clear. I will go change and start dinner, she said quickly. If that is all right. Ethan blinked, surprised. You do not need to cook. I can have the chef come in. Maya shook her head. Your mother thinks we are a couple. A real couple would cook together sometimes, or at least share meals that feel human. Let me help maintain the illusion. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. All right, but let me help. The kitchen, wide and open with stainless steel appliances, felt almost too perfect for real cooking. Yet Maya moved through it with ease, pulling ingredients from the fridge while Ethan watched her in a way that made his usually guarded presence soften. She chopped vegetables. He set out plates. They moved around each other carefully, almost gracefully. It was the most domestic moment he had lived in years. At one point Maya brushed past him, not touching him, but close enough that he felt the warmth of her presence. He paused, almost caught off guard by something as simple as proximity. She felt it too. She quickly stepped away and cleared her throat. "I did not mean to get in your way." "You were not," he said quietly. "You just startled me." When dinner was ready, they sat across from each other at the long dining table that echoed with too much emptiness for two people. Maya picked at her food, noticing how Ethan barely touched his plate. "You need to eat," she said gently. "Your mother will want to see you healthy." Ethan gave a faint smile. "Are you taking care of me now?" She froze, unsure how to answer. "I did not mean it that way." "I know," he replied softly. "But it has been a long time since anyone said something like that to me." They fell into a quiet rhythm, talking about simple things. Maya shared stories about her father, about how he used to fix old radios and save stray kittens. Ethan shared nothing too personal, but admitted that he had forgotten what it felt like to sit at a table and talk without an agenda. When they finished eating, Maya stood up to clean, but Ethan stopped her with a raised hand. "You cooked," he said. "I will clean." He rolled up his sleeves and began washing dishes, glancing at her occasionally with an expression she could not interpret. It felt almost normal, almost real. After the kitchen was spotless, Ethan walked her to the hallway where their separate rooms stood opposite each other. He remained several steps away, honoring her boundary as always. "Maya," he said, his voice low, "today meant more than you know. Not just for my mother. For me." She swallowed, gripping the doorknob to keep her hand steady. "I did what I promised. That is all." "It was more than that," he whispered. There was a beat of silence, a moment that might have changed everything if either of them moved even an inch closer. But Maya remembered the rule. Ethan respected it. She opened her door, offering a small nod. "Good night, Ethan." He held her gaze for a second longer than necessary. "Good night, Maya." When she closed the door behind her, she leaned against it, breathing hard, realizing the truth she had tried to ignore. The contract was still in place. The rules were still clear, but her heart had started to drift outside the boundaries she had set. And somewhere on the other side of the door, Ethan stood in the hallway, knowing with absolute certainty that something inside him was shifting too. Neither of them were ready for what it meant. The next morning the entire penthouse felt different, as if some invisible thread had tightened between them during the night. Maya woke early, her mind still buzzing with the echoes of Ethan's voice from the hallway. She tried to shake it off, reminding herself that the contract was temporary, that feelings were dangerous, and that boundaries existed for a reason. Yet when she stepped into the kitchen and found Ethan already there, sleeves rolled up, making coffee in silence, her pulse betrayed her. "Good morning," he said, turning toward her with a tired but soft expression. "I made some for you too." She hesitated before taking the mug. "Thank you." They stood in an awkward warmth, neither looking directly at the other, both remembering how close they had come to breaking their unspoken emotional distance the night before. But the fragile calm did not last. The elevator chimed, and the penthouse door opened with far too much confidence for a visitor who belonged. A tall woman in an expensive navy suit strode inside, without waiting for permission. Her heels clicked sharply on the marble floor, her eyes locked on Ethan with a coldness that made Maya tense. "You have to be kidding me," the woman snapped. "This is what all the rumors are about." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Victoria, you cannot walk into my home uninvited. I am your chief financial officer," she said with a mocking smile. "I go where I need to go, especially when the company's future is at stake." Maya froze. This must be the woman the etiquette consultant had warned her about. Someone powerful, someone ambitious, someone who had known Ethan long before she entered his life. Victoria swept her eyes over Maya, lingering on her dress, her hair, the faint nervous stiffness in her posture. "So this is your fiancé," she said with venomous sweetness. "The one you supposedly fell in love with overnight." Ethan stepped forward, blocking Victoria's view of Maya. "Do not speak to her like that." Victoria raised an eyebrow, amused. "Touchy, are we? Interesting. Because the board thinks this little engagement is a stunt, a distraction, a pathetic attempt to win sympathy votes before the merger." Maya felt her stomach drop. Merger, board, sympathy votes. None of that was in the contract. Ethan's voice sharpened. "My personal life has nothing to do with the merger, and you know it." Does it? Victoria asked, folding her arms. Because ever since this mystery girl showed up, investors are asking questions. Reporters want interviews. The board is doubting your decision-making. And frankly, so am I. Maya felt the blood rush to her cheeks. She hated being spoken about like she was a liability. Ethan straightened, his expression icy. Victoria, leave. Now. Or what? She challenged. Are you afraid I will tell your mother that your little romance is fake? Maya stiffened. Ethan's fists clenched. The threat hung in the air like a blade. You will not go near my mother, he said, his voice dangerously low. I mean it. Victoria smirked, taking a step closer. She is dying, Ethan. Do you really think lying to her is the legacy you want to leave behind? The words hit Ethan with brutal force. Maya watched him flinch, watched his carefully controlled composure crack under the cruelty. Something inside her snapped. She stepped forward, her voice steady despite the chaos rising inside her. You have no right to speak about his mother. Victoria turned, startled that Maya had dared to speak. Excuse me. You heard me, Maya said, her chin lifting. This is not about a merger. This is not about your position. This is about a sick woman who deserves peace. If you cannot show respect for that, then you should leave. Victoria blinked, thrown off balance for the first time. Her lips curled into a bitter smile. You have backbone. I will give you that. But you are still a nobody. And when this blows up, you will be the first one blamed. Ethan stepped between them again. Get out. This time Victoria obeyed, but not without a final dagger. The board meets in 2 days. If they suspect anything, if even one detail seems off, I will not protect you. Either of you. The elevator doors closed behind her, leaving a heavy silence in her place. Ethan exhaled shakily, brushing a hand through his hair. I am sorry, he said quietly, not looking at Maya. You should not have had to hear any of that. Maya's heart hurt for him. Is what she said true? Will the board question us? Ethan hesitated. They already are. I just hoped it would not reach you. She steadied her breath. We can handle this. I can handle this. Ethan finally looked at her, eyes dark with conflict. This contract was supposed to protect you from all of this. I did not want you dragged into corporate wars. Maya stepped back slightly, reminding herself of the rule, the boundaries she had set. I knew there would be challenges when I agreed. I will not walk away because someone tried to intimidate me. Ethan stared at her as if seeing her for the first time. Not as a contract bride, not as a temporary solution, but as someone willing to stand beside him in ways he never expected. Maya, he whispered, his voice low, you are stronger than anyone gives you credit for. She held his gaze, feeling the truth settle between them like a tide rising in slow, unstoppable waves. We made a promise to your mother, she said softly, and I intend to keep it. Ethan swallowed hard, his composure slipping just enough for her to see the gratitude beneath it. So do I. But neither of them realized that Victoria's visit was only the beginning. The storm that had been quietly building around them was about to break wide open, and the contract that once protected them was now becoming the very thing that might tear everything apart. The tension from Victoria's visit lingered in the penthouse long after she was gone, like the echo of a storm that had not fully passed. Ethan paced near the windows, the city lights reflecting off the glass behind him, making him look even more restless. Maya watched him quietly, her hands folded together, trying to ignore the heaviness settling between them. When he finally stopped pacing, he spoke in a low voice. The board meeting is in 2 days. If Victoria decides to stir chaos, she can make this entire arrangement collapse. Maya nodded slowly. What can we do? Ethan looked at her, something pleading behind his usually controlled expression. We have to convince them we are a real couple. Real enough that they cannot question it. Maya felt her stomach twist. She understood what he meant. She understood what corporate boards needed to see. She also understood exactly what she had forbidden from the beginning. No physical contact. Her rule. The boundary she had clung to so tightly that it became a shield for her heart. But now that shield was beginning to feel like a wall trapping both of them. Ethan seemed to sense her thoughts and stepped back instinctively. I am not asking you to break your rule, he said softly. I will never ask that. But we need something that shows trust between us. Something that shows we are connected. Maya swallowed hard. Like what? Ethan hesitated, then gestured toward the dining table. Sit with me. Talk with me. Let us be seen together in public places where people from the company might notice. Let them believe what my mother already believes. She nodded, relieved that he had not asked for more, ashamed that she had expected him to. I can do that, she said quietly. The next day, they began preparing. Maya met the stylist again for a wardrobe fitting. Ethan's assistant briefed her on the guest list and the board members she needed to recognize. And Ethan spent hours rehearsing answers that would satisfy investors without revealing anything personal. Throughout the day, their interactions grew more layered, more real. Ethan asked about her father with genuine concern, and Maya found herself talking about him without the usual tightness in her chest. She asked about Ethan's childhood, and he shared just enough for her to sense how lonely it had been. There were no touches, no closeness, but the emotional distance between them narrowed in quiet, undeniable ways. On the evening before the board meeting, they sat in the living room going over final details. Maya studied the packet of names and photos, committing them to memory. Ethan watched her, unable to hide the faint admiration in his eyes. You learn fast, he murmured. Maya looked up. It is important to you. So it is important to me too. Ethan inhaled sharply, as if the words touched something deeper than intended. You do not have to do all of this alone, he said gently. We are supposed to be partners in this, even if it is temporary. She nodded, but her heart thudded in a way that made her chest feel too full. She was starting to forget that this was not a real marriage. She was starting to forget why she had built her rule in the first place, and that terrified her. Later that night, she stepped onto the balcony for fresh air, not realizing Ethan had followed until he spoke from behind her. Maya, she turned slightly, keeping a safe distance between them. Ethan leaned on the railing, his posture heavy with something unsaid. There is something I need you to know before tomorrow, he said. The contract, it was never about securing votes or gaining sympathy. It was never about the merger. She frowned. Then what was it? He exhaled slowly. Fear. That is what it was. Fear of losing my mother without giving her the happiness she wanted for me. Fear of disappointing her one final time. Maya softened. Ethan, I used the contract to protect myself, he continued, his voice breaking slightly. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being protection. It became something else. I just did not want to admit it. She felt the air tighten between them, a fragile truth hovering in the space they refused to cross. What are you saying? She whispered. Ethan looked at her with an honesty that made her breath hitch. I am saying that this arrangement started as a lie, but the way I feel now, whatever this is, it is not a lie anymore. Maya's heart pounded so hard she thought he might hear it. She stepped back, her hands trembling. Ethan, do not, she whispered. We cannot let this turn into something it is not. We have rules. I made rules to keep this under control. He nodded, but the pain in his eyes was unmistakable. I know, and I respect your rule. But I need you to know that it is not the contract I care about anymore. It is you. Maya felt her breath catch. In that moment she knew the truth she had been denying to herself. The rule she created was no longer protecting her from him. It was protecting her from her own heart. Before she could respond, Ethan straightened and stepped back, giving her space. We should get some sleep, he said quietly. Tomorrow will be difficult. She watched him walk away, her heart unraveling with every step he took. And for the first time since she entered his world, she realized that the biggest danger was not the board, not Victoria, not the contract. It was the possibility that she was falling for a man she could not keep. The morning of the board meeting arrived with a heaviness neither of them could ignore, yet both pretended they did not feel. Maya dressed carefully in the outfit the stylist had chosen, a deep navy dress that balanced confidence and humility, while Ethan adjusted his tie in the mirror with a tension that made his shoulders stiff. They rode to the corporate headquarters together in silence, the car gliding through the city as if it knew the gravity of the day. When they stepped into the building, all eyes turned toward them. Employees whispered, some curious, some judgmental, and Maya felt the weight of each stare press against her ribs. Ethan walked beside her with protective intention, not touching her, but creating a shield with his presence. When they entered the boardroom, Victoria was already there, standing near the head of the long polished table with a smile that was far too satisfied. Perfect timing, she said with poisoned sweetness. The board is very eager to hear about your engagement. Ethan locked his jaw, guiding Maya to stand beside him. Our personal life will not be dissected today, he said firmly. We are here to discuss the merger. One of the older board members leaned forward. Mr. Ward, with all due respect, your sudden engagement raises concerns about your judgment and stability. Investors want reassurance. Another member added, and there are rumors circulating about the authenticity of your relationship. Maya felt her breath catch, but Ethan placed his hand on the table, steady and firm. There is nothing inauthentic about our commitment, he said. My mother is dying. She wanted to see me build a life, and Maya has given her comfort in ways I never could have anticipated. Victoria stepped forward, eyes sharp. So this is all for your mother's sake? A sentimental performance? That hardly reassures the board. Ethan turned toward her, his voice low but unshakably strong. This is not a performance. He looked at Maya then, and something deep and unguarded shone in his eyes. And it is not temporary. The room fell silent. Maya's heart stumbled. Ethan continued, his tone steady despite the storm in his chest. The contract we created was meant to protect us, but it no longer reflects the truth. I will not stand here and pretend that I feel nothing for her. Not anymore. Maya felt every pair of eyes land on her, waiting for her reaction, waiting for confirmation or denial. But she saw the sincerity in Ethan's expression, saw the way he was no longer hiding behind business or strategy. This was not a speech for the board. This was a confession, and something inside her cracked open. I did not expect to feel anything when I agreed to this arrangement, she said softly, her voice trembling but clear. I came into this thinking I was just helping a family in pain. But Ethan's mother, she treated me with love from the moment she saw me. And Ethan, she paused, her breath shaking. Ethan has been kinder and more honest with me than anyone has been in years. A murmur rippled through the room. Victoria rolled her eyes. Touching, truly, but the board cannot approve decisions based on romance. Ethan straightened, then approved decisions based on leadership. He pulled a folder from his briefcase and slid it onto the table. The merger will proceed as planned. The financial projections remain unchanged. And my relationship with Maya has not interfered with my responsibilities. In fact, it has grounded me. The board members exchanged glances, assessing the documents, the tone, the conviction. After a long pause, the chairman spoke. The board will continue with the merger, and your engagement will not be questioned further. But understand that transparency is expected from here on. Ethan nodded. You will have it. Victoria's glare could have shattered glass, but she said nothing as the meeting ended. When the room finally cleared, Ethan turned toward Maya with an expression full of quiet fear and hope. Maya, he whispered, I meant every word I said. She exhaled shakily. You broke the contract. Then let us end it, he said, reaching into his coat and pulling out the document they had signed. He tore it cleanly down the middle, the sound sharp and final. No more rules. No more boundaries you set out of fear. Not unless you truly want them. Maya felt her heart swell painfully. Ethan, he stepped closer, careful but certain. Do you want this to be real? Not a contract. Not a lie. Us. Maya felt every moment they had shared rushing through her. The kindness of his mother, the long nights talking, the pain he carried, the way he looked at her like she mattered. And she realized she was no longer afraid. Yes, she whispered. I want this. Ethan's breath caught, raw emotion washing over his face. Then marry me. Truly. Not for my mother, not for the board. For us. Tears filled her eyes as she nodded. For us. Months later, after the merger stabilized and life found a gentler rhythm, Ethan proposed again, this time with no pretense, no urgency, just love. They married in a small ceremony surrounded by those who had seen the truth from the beginning. And every day after, Maya remembered that her one rule had changed everything, not by limiting love, but by showing them both exactly when real love had begun.